Hello, this is Mark. I'm going to talk about my experience using a blood glucose meter and how you can stabilize blood sugar levels and just go over what I learned along the way. I'm not a diabetic. I just wanted to utilize it to determine how different foods affect my blood sugar levels. I started off with carbohydrates isolated by themselves. Um, it was predominantly fruits. I consumed bananas, and I found that on average one banana could raise my blood sugar to roughly 140, and that was within a 45-minute period, and then it would drop to baseline or around 90 within 2 hours. I also consumed goji berries, which was a health food promoted by Dr. Oz years ago for its high antioxidant content, and it was labeled a superfood. However, I decided to put the entire package, which had 120 grams of sugar in total. I decided to soak the goji berries in water overnight, and as you would have guessed, the goji berries soaked or pulled in the water, and the sugar was separated and it sunk to the bottom of the water in the cup. And the next following morning, I decided to consume the concentrated water as well as the goji berries. And within 45 minutes, my blood sugar levels raised to 190, around that range. And I was very surprised. At the time, it's just, I'm initially going in just to learn. And of course, when you're consuming concentrated sugar, any dried fruit that's not natural, it's been desiccated and concentrated um, to a degree that it's easy to consume excess, and that's exactly what I did. And it's not good to have blood sugar levels that spike that high for sustained periods of time, but it did drop down within like an hour and a half, 2 hours, back to 90. So it definitely stabilized, but definitely created a strong insulin response in my body. And then at this time, I had access to raw milk. I actually decided to create a smoothie, and I put raw milk. When I put raw milk, honey, or raw honey. That's what it was labeled. But and then I added a banana, one banana. I added turmeric, because turmeric is good for inflammation. It's good for the liver and detoxification. And I also added cinnamon, which is known to increase insulin sensitivity, which is good for anyone trying to stabilize their blood sugar levels, because insulin is what helps convert the glucose into glycogen for storage within the liver, or its energy storage for the brain and the muscles, or any energy demands from the body. What else did I add? I think that was pretty much it. I combined it all together and blended it and consumed the concept. So when I consumed it, I noted that this was more sugar than I previously attained just by consuming a banana by itself. And what was interesting is my blood sugar level, starting from baseline around 90, spiked to 105 within 45 minutes. Checked an hour later, it was down to 95. And then I checked at the 2 hour mark, and it was down to 80. So my levels went below baseline, and there was a marginal spike relative to consumption of just one banana, which had less sugar, much less sugar than the shake that I combined. So this is the sole reason why my blood sugar level did not spike was the fat production, or the fat within the raw milk, which in that state it's a little bit easier to process relative to ultra pasteurized milk, and it's easier on the body. And fat is very good to stabilize blood sugar levels because it slows the release of blood sugar in the system, and overall it slows the digestion process, and that can allow the liver to receive the stream of glucose at a slower rate, so it prevents the burden on the liver due to the glucose, or even fructose, which anyone who consumes fructose, it has to be converted in the liver to glucose. So there's that if you're consuming a lot of fructose, it can cause that. It's known to cause fatty liver because it can definitely damage the liver over time. And then after this, yeah, so that was a successful combination. But then I decided to consume higher protein at night, and whether it's red meat, fish. Predominantly, I remember I consumed red meat, and red meat is harder to digest and break down, and it's easy to go overboard because we have, depending on if you're physically active, your body's demands will be lower if you're sedentary and you're not working out. And during the time I wasn't, but when you consume a pound of red meat at a time, you're likely to reach the excess limit. And what I noticed is that my blood sugar level, every morning when I consumed a lot of protein previous night, my blood sugar level would be at baseline around 105. Normally it's around 90. And for this reason, I'm assuming some of the protein was converted to glucose through the gluconeogenesis cycle, and that is mainly due to the excess. If you have protein in excess or amino acids that the body does not need or does not need to utilize, cortisol can actually convert the excessive protein into glucose, and that can be stored as energy for later or utilized, could be utilized for any of the processes within the body. So it's definitely not good to go overboard on protein. Try to moderate it and consume protein to fit your demands and your activity level, and that way your blood sugar levels should stabilize. Another thing I noticed is if you do consume a lot of caffeine or coffee, that could definitely increase your blood sugar levels, even if you don't consume any sugar. And even if you're in a fasting state, prolonged fasting state, this is a problem. Fasting for prolonged periods, I'm not talking about like 8, 16 hours, that should be fine, give your body rest. I'm talking about very extended excess periods can cause a lot of stress to the body, and it's hard for the body to withstand that state. And when you're consuming caffeine, which adds extra stress to the adrenal glands, it's going to pose a lot of problems, and that can increase cortisol, and cortisol can actually break down and cause muscle atrophy and formulate glucose through the gluconeogenesis cycle, again, to support inflammation or any stress that is occurring within the body. So it's good to moderate caffeine, especially when you're if you're a diabetic or if you want to stabilize your blood sugar level over time. And then, of course, you want to exercise and try to get your circulation increased so you can receive enough oxygen for your brain to function optimally. And the last note I want to make is when you eliminate carbs from your diet for a very extended period, and you fast, and you're doing intermittent fasting or ketogenic diet, which is fine, I think in the short run it's not optimal. This is just my belief in long term. But if you do this for very long periods and then you just jump in and you start consuming carbs again, your blood sugar level is going to be higher than it was at baseline. I can assure that because everything adapts. So like for instance, if you are a vegan and you don't consume meat for years, and then suddenly you consume a 72-ounce steak, is your body going to be expected to break that down? Because your body is trying to conserve energy, and if doesn't need to eat meat, your body is very intelligent, all the processes, and it understands that, okay, your body, when you're not consuming any meat, it adjusts accordingly to suppress the processes that are needed to break down the protein. So hydrochloric acid and pepsin and all the enzymes and everything that's needed to break down fat, and all that energy that is created, it's going to be suppressed. So if you jump in and you eat a large steak, immediately your body's going to expel it. It's not going to take it. So it's always good to go easy and slowly and progress your way um, at a marginal rate. That way your body can acclimate and adapt. So yeah, it's definitely the same is true with regards to insulin. When you're not consuming carbs for an extended period, um, you do get some insulin response, I believe, to protein, but it's if you're not consistent with your carb intake and you just shut and you're not consuming for a very long time, it's gonna desensitize the receptors. So just by consuming carbs very, very frequently, you're adding the sensitivity as long as you don't go in excess. So you're gonna have your insulin's gonna work effectively. But if you just jump in and you consume excess sugar immediately, or you consume a lot of sugar after fasting for such long, your blood sugar levels are most likely going to skyrocket, and your body's going to be shocked, and then it's going to have to try to readjust, and it could create or promote even more stress on the body due to the shock, and that's going to promote even more glucose. So yeah, these are the key ways I believe that concepts that you can utilize to stabilize blood sugar levels over time. And I hope this information was helpful.